Hey, we've been laughing a lot backstage. I'm really excited and happy to have you back home with us, Juan. So we know that part of this amazing journey that you've been on, especially for someone so young, was here on campus. But when we were prepping for this, we thought the audience might benefit from knowing a little bit about your pre-Rollins life. Because you came to theatre a little bit later than some people do, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. At least from the people I was around. So I grew up in Miami, and I didn't... In Miami? No. I didn't kind of get into theatre until I was about 14 or 15. I remember my sister, Helena, who's also an alum, was telling me, you should really audition for this local musical. I was like, musical theater, that sounds lame. But I ended up loving it. My first audition was for a local production of Shrek the Musical, and I didn't get in because I had a very bad audition. And I was lucky enough to get into their next production, Jekyll and Hyde, and from there I was like, oh, it's theater all the way. But I had no sort of idea of what that meant, which you'll see is a recurring theme, just not knowing what to do. But I had come, from a single mother household. We were on food stamps. No one I grew up around before entering the children's theater had any sort of aspirations or dream of Hollywood or Broadway. That wasn't really a thing where I grew up. So that's kind of some of the context of where I come in. And I remember, being at my first rehearsal, and everyone's like, "Oh, I've been doing this since I was 5, or I've been taking classes since I was 5." And I was like, yeah, me too. But there's nothing.
Can you remember, and this may not be a moment for you, but I think many in the arts sort of have the spark moment, or there was something about theatre. Can you articulate for yourself what that was?
I can. So when I was in this first production of Jekyll and Hyde, or the first production I did, Jekyll and Hyde, I was an ensemble member. I didn't have any lines. And I remember it was like, I think the third rehearsal, someone was sick. And I was like, but we're blocking the scene today. I was like, I can do it. And then from then, that became kind of the recurring theme in that rehearsal process, is that anytime someone was out sick, boy, girl, soprano, tenor, whatever, I'd be like, I can do it. I was just so eager to join. And I was lucky enough that someone was like, I actually can't make opening night. Someone who had like a proper role with lines and a song. And they said, well, Juan's been really trying, so let's have him out. So on opening night, I got to play a role when I was, an ensemble member with no lines. And I will never forget just the opening number, the red curtain opening, the audience, and just immediately starstruck. And when I would say something, people would laugh, or I had this moment where I died, and it actually shocked people. There was, I cracked my neck, and it was never really done well in rehearsal and any show after, but that show particularly, he clipped my mic. So it sounded like my neck actually cracked. And everyone in the audience goes, and I remember that might have been my spark moment. I was like, that's so cool. I can make people feel a certain way.
Through unsafe theatre practices.
Yeah, bring them back. We've gotten too cautious.
And so you've got that spark, and was this around that 14, 15 years old?
Yeah, 14, maybe just about to turn 15. I remember my mom didn't want me to learn how to shave just yet, so I was kind of growing a little awkward.
Oh, that's still the...
Yeah, it's still there. I don't know. Thanks. All right, David, we all can't grow a beard like you. But
mine's got spots.
So I was pretty desperate to shave it.
Yeah. And so again, coming from I know a little bit about your family, but coming from a family, well, your sister was moving into theatre.
Yeah.
But what was the moment for you, or the process of this feeling is something I want to replicate, to I'm going to sort of pursue it? Because that's not a small move for anyone. But if you're coming from a background where you've been talked pretty openly with me in terms of food insecurity and those kinds of things, right? So that adds whole other layers on top of it.
Definitely. I always loved movies. I think I wanted to be a director, an animator. I wanted to be anything. So the shift was already from something creative to something creative, but when you talk about that, and talk about food insecurity and the desire for stability, I noticed, like, for example, my older sibling, Helena, she really craved stability. So she actually started taking a few steps back from theater. But for me, in my head, it was, no, I have to make it. There's no other option, because if I can find some level of success in this, then that can actually help support my family more than a 9 to 5 can. And that wasn't my main reason to go into theater. If you go into theater or the arts for money, you're kind of screwed, and that's not the place to find it. But it was a driving force of, okay, I can make this work. I can make this work. I might not be the most talented guy in the room. Still, I'm probably not the most talented. I'm telling you for 100% of a fact, I'm probably not even like in the top 25, 50% of the most talented people in this room. But I knew that I could work towards it, and that I could show up every day and be there, and that would make a difference. Or at least I hoped.
Yeah. And then, so we know Rollins is part of your story, and that's partially why we brought you back, right? Because we're proud to have you as an alum. But what was that step then with Rollins? So again, I know your sister. I know that she was here. Was that part of that process for you, or? Yeah,
I mean, I had just kind of thrown myself to every school I could. I was lucky enough to get like I think all of my application fees waived, so I was just throwing them out there. And Rollins, I had come for the Priscilla Parker weekend to audition, and I got to stay with my sister on campus. And I was lucky enough to have gotten that scholarship. And it, honestly, at the time, it was kind of just, oh, okay, which is surprising because I'm sure many of you can attest, you're a little worried about sometimes the tuition prices here. But for me, I really was like, oh, this was the place that gave me the most scholarship and seemed to. I remember at one point I had even reached out to them, whoever them was. I don't remember the financial aid people, and I was like, I don't know if I can make it. It's just looking a little too expensive, and they're like, let's see what we can shift around. So that was a big factor into coming here, and yeah, when I stayed here, finding out just how beautiful the campus was. I got to see, this is kind of a cool fact, I don't know how much you guys promote this, because you definitely should. My Priscilla Parker weekend, you come and see a show. The show that they were doing was a workshop of John Proctor's The Villain that opened alongside Stranger Things: The First Shadow, right across the street from us at the same time. So that was a very surreal, full circle moment where the show that I had seen my senior year of high school at the college I was going to go to during my audition weekend is all of a sudden opening alongside with Sadie Sink from Stranger Things as well. So very crazy moment. And you guys should be pretty proud of that John Proctor's The Villain stuff. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know. Put on a banner or something. I don't know.
So we're certainly going to talk a bit more about Rollins and sort of your prep, right? But another thread that you've talked about with me is you worked hard to stay at Rollins.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there can be. I think there are a lot of narratives about success. Like once I've done blank, it becomes easy. And I think what I see for many of our students is maybe the easy doesn't come so easily. And then that you worked hard for 4 years.
Yeah, and it never comes easy. And if it does, you should run. I kind of fear comfort. I don't know if that's just from I don't know if that's from growing up poor or what, but I fear comfort. And I remember there was a certain point in the show that I started feeling comfortable. I was like, I don't like this. I get a little antsy. But yeah, at my time in Rollins, my freshman year, I remember I was like, I don't know if I can actually afford to keep going here. And then the pandemic happened, and we got some money back and money from the government. And I was like, okay, let me put this away so I can stay here. And yeah, I worked at the scene shop until my senior year. I worked as an RA, an assistant hall director. I did Uber Eats driving throughout, in between classes. So there's not really a point where it comes easy, and I don't think that is what you should crave or strive for it to be easy. If that kind of answers your question.
No, it's lovely. And we talked about, we'll tease that out, but he's alluded, and Chelsea talked about it at the beginning, this very sweet gig you've landed after a year and a half of being outside in the real world. But I thought why don't we leap forward a little bit, Juan, and then talk about that scary transition.
Yeah.
As faculty and staff here who we become quite attached and fond of our students, I think we all worry that there's only so much we can do to prepare them for that transition. And you had some bumps, but you also did some good planning. So why don't you tell us that first step? What is the first thing you did as you faced graduation?
Yeah, so I actually didn't do enough planning, probably. I didn't have too much. I was just, I remember my junior year, I had taken an acting for the camera class, and my whole dream from 14 years old when I stepped on that stage for the first time was going to do Broadway. But my junior year, I was like, no, that. Sorry, pardon my French. But I was like, I want to do TV and film now. So all of a sudden, with 1 year left at school, I shifted my plans and I said, I'm going to move to LA. And I remember my kind of graduation was approaching. And I didn't know how to get there because I didn't have enough money in savings. But I started thinking, wait, I'm in residential life right now. They give me a free apartment. I think I can do this outside of here too. And I had just started applying for a bunch of schools in LA. And I remember I'd said by July 13th, that's my birthday, I want to be in LA. And it was like July 3rd. And I'm like, I don't know if this plan's going to work out. And I'd gotten a call from a university that was a Buddhist university. It was a very interesting time, but they said, we really, can we interview? We set it up for 2 days later, and they said, all right, Juan, we really like this. You seem like the guy. When can you start? And I said, how about in 10 days? And they're like, really? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, but you're in Florida, right? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, yeah. And so I drove from Florida to LA. The first day I started driving was July 13th, my birthday, which coincidentally was also the first day of the actors' strike.
Yeah, and in a weird, I think maybe many in your generation have these hard moments, like with COVID hitting, but you've hit several of them in these pivotal transition moments. Right?
Yeah. So I had a therapist in high school tell me.
Is that proud?
Yeah, a therapist in high school, and she had told me, because that's when my parents got separated, and there's all these different things going on, and she had said, Juan, make problems your opportunity. And that sticks with me to this day. So when that happened, I knew one person in LA, another Rollins alum, Luke Sawyer, who, yeah, I know you hear some laughing. This guy was a lacrosse frat bro who dropped out of lacrosse to do theater. Yeah, so
you're welcome, Luke.
Yeah, this guy. He was the only guy I knew, and he was like, "Well, Juan, I'm happy you're in LA." We weren't like that close, but we had some rapport, and he's like, "Let me take you out and show you a good time." Sorry. You said me.
That'll be in the after interview series. Yeah. That's the bonus content.
But we went out to a few different just bars out there, and I'm like, I have this very specific memory of I'm with his buddies, and we're on electric scooters to go from one bar to the other. Yeah, I know. And at the electric scooter parking, we were 4 buddies. There were 3 spots. And I got there last, so I didn't get a spot. The next one was a mile down. So I'm like, don't worry, guys. I'll just go. You guys go on without me. I'll be all right. I'm scootering. I'm like, this is so stupid. I'm getting in my head. And I'm like, there's like a building on fire. I'm like, what the? And I park it, and I'm like, all right, now to walk a mile back. And through the flames, I see Luke Sawyer on his scooter coming up, and he was like, hop on. And I hop on the back. Yeah, and that memory was so vivid, and I was just like, there's something here. So a week later, I said, Luke, let me pitch you something. And during this actor's strike where we couldn't work, we wrote, directed, and filmed a short film, Oh Brother, that is now making its way through the festival circuits. But the first thing I did when we got that footage was I made me and him a quick little reel. And that one clip that I had made for myself got me my manager, and then the strike ended, and that one clip got me Grey's Anatomy, Sex Lives of College Girls, and Elsbeth. From one clip. So that would have never happened if the actors hadn't gone on strike the day I moved to LA and started fearing that I had made the wrong decision. So if you take one thing with you, I really hope it is make problems your opportunity.
Yeah, and so what was the genesis other than this beautiful, epic, very scenic moment of
which isn't
Luke,
in the movie, but I want to put it in the movie one day because it's too good.
For those of us who know and remember Luke, whether we can probably picture that as
hop on,
yeah. So tell us a little bit more about a brother, and tell us a little bit more about that process. So yeah, you're in a new city, you know one person.
Yeah.
And I imagine the day job is part of it. Like you chose a day job smartly and strategically, right?
Yeah, well, I want to touch on that first for a second about
please.
Your day job. There's a lot of talk about the struggling artist. You're drilled, that is drilled into you from the moment you start theater training, that you're gonna struggle, that you should be grateful for anything that you can get, even if it's not paid, if it's that. I think that's all bull, because we live in a new age. There are different things you could do. There are remote jobs that you can do fully remote. Another thing I did after, once I started booking TV, so I was fired from this job and lost my housing as well. So again, another problem. I put Airbnbs on my credit card. It was a mess. But then I started working in software sales. I'd never done sales before in my life. And but Luke had, and he helped me build a resume, and I get a job interview for my first, the first thing I applied to, and they go, Juan, I think we really like you. Well, what are your salary expectations? I go, what are you guys thinking? And they go, we're thinking 60 a year, which is more money than I'd ever made in my life at that point. And I went, I was really thinking 80. And they go, okay, well, let's just talk and get back to you. And then they come back and they go, all right, let's do 65. Can you come up to 75? And they go, we'll do 70. And I go, I'm really stuck on the 75. I was an idiot. Like, I have no idea. But I think they were like, oh, this guy can do sales if he's going to go. So then they said, okay. So then they said, all right, we'll meet you at 72 and give you a signing bonus to get you there. But all that to be said, like that, I was putting Airbnbs on my credit card. And then I learned how quickly I could not be doing that, We live in a different world. And I remember I was in my trailer for Elsbeth, and I'm still working this remote job. But that's something that you can do, like now in this world. So I think the struggling artist thing is kind of bullcrap. And then to bring it back to the artist part, is you shouldn't be grateful and accept everything that comes your way. Audition for everything. But if something comes your way and you don't think they'll treat you right, don't take it. That doesn't mean you can't work for free. There's a lot of great community theater out there and very important work happening. But just also know your worth.
Yeah, I love that.
What was your first question?
Would you like some water?
Yes, please. Thank you. Yeah.
That's provocative and really helpful. And you did get this. This is a string of shows we recognize. Do you know what I mean? So, well, tell me about that journey and the agent journey, because I think for those of us who are more strictly on the theatre side, agents still feel a little mysterious even to me.
Yeah, and to be honest, they're still a little mysterious to me. What I like to emphasize is that there's no set path. So you say agent, most people get their agent first. I got a manager first. So that's just what the cards I got dealt. I just signed with an agency like 3 months ago, which I'm very happy about. But do you guys all know Actors Access? Yeah, so Actors Access is, to me, the single best resource for an actor. And they had this one thing called Talent Link, where you can just put your material out there. And again, I got lucky because my headshot was awful. But I had that one real clip, but my headshot was awful because it was like well done. It was nice. It was the ones that we had gotten from the theater, and they were really good. But the problem was I had gotten a haircut for a play the day before. And I had this really short hair that I don't ever have. But I got lucky. She saw my material and she liked it, and she said, I was looking for someone like you. And she said, the first thing we're going to do is get you new headshots. So that's one option is Talent Link. You can also cold email managers and agents you want to work with. A really good resource for that is IMDb Pro. Both Actors Access and IMDb Pro, you do need to pay for. These are kind of the investments you have to make as an actor and kind of gauge how you can put that money there and take it away from somewhere else. But IMDb Pro, you can find people. You could find Brad Pitt's team if you wanted, I wouldn't do that. Find someone who's up and coming or who just did that indie film is probably going to take off and then reach out to people like that. We cold emailed, me and my manager, some agents. Some came to see the show and reached out. So really the best thing you can do, take all that information in, but also the best thing you can do is just produce art, make art, be in art. Because that's where a lot of agents and managers, when they're looking for someone, they'll go, oh, okay, let me come see this play that's happening, especially if you're in New York or LA, but anywhere really. And you can record your work that you do here. You can make a short film. That's the type of stuff that gives you some level of validity in their eyes. So really the most important thing is focus on the art. And then once you've done that, those are some resources: Actors Access Talent Link, IMDb Pro, cold emailing. Those are some of the resources that you can use once you've done that.
Have you got any LA stories from one of those projects that you particularly want to share?
I remember the first thing I'd ever booked was Success at College Girls. And again, very lucky that I got my manager. The strike ended right around there, and the first thing I auditioned for was Success at College Girls. With her, was the first thing I auditioned for with her, and I booked it. And I'm driving into the Warner Brothers lot, which I'd never, because I was at I had a few lines in this, but it was enough to like get me a parking spot and get me hair and makeup and a trailer. And I remember I'm driving in the lot, and then I have my sunglasses on, my window rolled down, listening to some music, and the studio tour comes by, and I go, I don't know what came over me. I did this. And they all go, who is that? Oh my God, should we take a selfie? And I literally was getting on my first gig. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. So, love it. So, like as an observer, it seems like you were starting to get some traction in the LA market, and then the next big step most of us know about your life is you've ended up in New York.
Yeah.
So tell us about that sudden bi-coastal shift.
What a funny, again, full circle moment where I thought I wanted to be in New York and ended up there. But I love this story because it proves to you that a no in this industry from casting directors and producers it doesn't necessarily mean no. It can mean a maybe later. So before I got my manager, during the strike, I was auditioning for everything I could, which was mostly non-union work, but union theater work, like equity. So I was just putting myself out for everything that I saw on Actors Access, on Playbill, on casting networks, all these different resources. I was just throwing myself out there. One of the things that stuck for a second was the national tour of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And I got called back for this character, Scorpius, and I'd made it to the final round of callbacks, and I didn't get it. And I was crushed, because I was like, at this point, this callback process was like 2 months long in New York. I was staying with my ex-girlfriend, who was my ex-girlfriend at the time. It was very, just a little. But
should we give her a shout out?
Yeah.
We love her as well.
Yeah, she's great. No, she is great. As a friend. All right, I keep digging myself. But point being, this casting director kept me in mind, and then a year later, now I have some credits to my name. I have a manager. He reaches out to my manager and says, okay, so there's this Stranger Things: The First Shadow play. I didn't even know that this was a play. And it was fully cast, and now we're having a sudden recast for the role of Bob Newby. Does Juan mind coming in and reading? And I remember being like, should we, I'm not gonna get that. There's just no, and this casting director in particular had kept calling me back for roles that were specifically for a white person. And I didn't get, which didn't necessarily mean it's because of that, but you make your own connections. So I was like, is this even worth it? And my manager was like, Juan, this is Stranger Things. It's Netflix's first Broadway play. It's at least worth it to try. So I put myself on tape. They said it'd be moving quickly. I didn't hear anything for like 3 weeks. I filmed that here. The last time I was here was when I was filming, not here, just in Winter Park, but I was with my family, and I was right here. And but then I remember it was like January 5th or something, or after New Year's. I'm helping my friend Lexi build a bed in her apartment that she had asked, and I was like, we're talking about New Year's resolutions, and I said, I don't know how, but 2025 is the year I'm going to become a full-time actor. And then, literally, I'm not kidding you, 5 minutes later, I got a call from my manager. They want to see you in New York. So I fly to New York, and they said it's going to be one callback. The callback's going to be on Tuesday. The first rehearsal's Monday. I go in. There's 2 other guys there. The first guy goes in. He's in there for like 10 minutes. It's like 3 scenes. I was like, I don't even think you can do those in 10 minutes. I was like, oh, gosh, I'm a little nervous. But I had kind of the confidence of, I'm not going to get this. So it was rather an act of practice of like, okay, so I know they have a problem. Their first rehearsal is Monday, and they have a sudden recast. I probably won't get it, but let me make this a practice in walking in, and just through my walk alone, tell them, you guys don't got a problem anymore. Like, I know, very, like, what a jerk off, you know? But like, it was, that's the type of, like, confidence you have to instill in yourself. And then I'd say when the audition's over, that confidence needs to go away, and you need to go, okay, what could I do better there? But for that moment, that's what I was like, okay, this is my goal, is just to do that. I walk in, the director, Stephen Daldry, who's like this Tony Award-winning, Olivier, he makes The Crown on Netflix, so very big deal. He comes up to me and goes, oh, well, nice to meet you. Like, he stands up and gives me a handshake, and I do the scene, and the scenes are fine. Like, I think they were good, but I think what got me the role was he asked that question that directors love to ask you, where it's like, so what are you up to, or something like that, right? Or what do you do, like, when you're not acting? And I had told this convoluted story of when I was on Elsbeth, and the scene partner I had was a guest star that hadn't been announced yet. So when I get there for my trailer, I'm reading my sides, and on the front page of the sides, they have the cast for the day. So oh, let me check who it is. And I go, oh, that's funny, that guy has the same name as Matthew Broderick. And then I Googled it, and they just announced it that day that Matthew Broderick was guest starring, the Matthew Broderick. And I told them that story, and they were laughing. And I told them, not the way I told it now. It was very long and convoluted and kind of stupid. But I had this we were telling jokes, he was laughing. We were making a personal connection. And I think that mattered much, much more than the actual scenes themselves. So then, remember, they said there was going to be one callback. They call my manager right after. And they say, actually, can he come in on Thursday? We want to see him one more time. Okay, let's go there Thursday. Now I'm the only one there. Do this same scenes again, but now the writer, Kate Fry, is there, and the co-director, Justin Martin's there. Do the scene again. Justin gives me a note that he was like, so why are you doing that? I was like, yeah, I had no answer, but then he was like, I understand it's a smart choice, but it's not a real choice. And we just now we're working it, right? Okay, finish it. That goes well. I leave. I get a call from my manager 5 minutes later. They want to see you again tomorrow, Friday, at night. Same sides. I was like, okay. I go in there and I do the same sides again. And I think that this is for real, the last one, because the first rehearsal's Monday. They're not going to work on a Saturday. So at the very end of it, now Sonia Friedman, the producer's there. And Sonia Friedman is a very big Broadway producer. And I remember at the end and this was genuine. This wasn't like trying to get any brownie points here. This was genuine. I said, hey guys, I don't know if I'll see you again, but this has meant a lot to me. Thank you for letting me be of service to Bob. Like, I really love that character in this show, so thank you for letting me be of service to her. And Sonia goes, oh, that's so sweet. And then I leave. 10 minutes later, call from my manager. This is like 10 p.m. right now. And she goes, they want to see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. for a chemistry read, and they're sending you 3 new sides. But they say they don't have to memorize. I'm like, f that, I'm going to memorize them. Yeah. Like, I've gotten this far. Now I'm actually thinking I could possibly get this, you know? So I'm like putting my all into this now. And I stayed up all night learning the sides. I walk in at like 9:40. I got there before the co-director did. Like, I was there early, you know? And I remember the stage manager comes up to me and goes, we're so sorry, we sent you the wrong sides. No. Here are the 3 sides. Oh. And I don't know what came over me, but I look at them, and then I meet Allison and Burke, the already cast Joyce and Hopper, who they wanted me to do chemistry week. And I look at this. I go, okay. I put it in my pocket. I don't know what came over, just something was, and I did it without looking. And this was a 2.5-hour session that actually unknowingly to me was my first rehearsal and was their rehearsal. This was a rehearsal for them and possibly me. At the end of this 2.5 hours, we're running across everywhere. We're jumping up and down. We're doing I'm like sweaty, but we're having a great time. Stephen Daldry says, Juan, let me just talk to you alone for a moment. I was like, all right. And he sits me down and he goes, I need you to know this, Juan. You are incredible. We see how hard you're working, and I need you to know that. You've worked harder than anyone here, and you need to know that. But what happens now is the tapes go to LA, they go to Netflix, and they're going to make the final decision, and they might care about things we don't care about. You can read between the lines there, right? The same thing that I had been getting time and time again. And I remember I was like, but it was actually I really respected that he told me that. And he said, we don't know how long you're going to be here, we don't know how long this is going to take, so we want to pay for your hotel. Now, a little sidetrack. I was staying at a hostel at first because I was so broke. But my friend Mikey, also Rollins alum, his dad works at Hilton and was able to get me a discount. So thank God I had changed hotels right before this because I was staying at a hostel and now I'm staying on the 30th floor of like the nicest Hilton room with a queen bed and it's all paid for. So I was like, oh, okay, thank you. And I leave. So we'll pay for it and we'll let you know when we know. And I leave and I call my manager and it's freezing in New York and I'm from Florida, so I'm so cold, so I walk into a McDonald's just to stay warm. And then all of a sudden, I start talking to my manager, start crying. I'm like, this is so, like, I worked so, but now something that I can't control is getting in the way. I'm like, and now I'm crying at a McDonald's, and this is so embarrassing. And she's like, well, we don't know what we don't know yet. You know, we don't know what we don't know yet. Just try to enjoy your time there. And I spent Saturday kind of mourning the loss of that. Something that I thought was right there. Like, you know, it's right in my grasp. And then Sunday morning I wake up and I go, it doesn't matter. I'm here in a paid vacation to New York. Let me go enjoy it. And I spent my whole Sunday just enjoying New York with this girl I'd met that now is my girlfriend. And just like I was like, all right, I'm gonna like take advantage of this. Let me have a fun time. And then I get back to my hotel. I'm alone. It's like 8 p.m. and I get a call. It's the casting director. And this is how he says. He goes, hey, Juan, unfortunately, you're not going back to LA tomorrow. Like I'm an American Idol or something. And then
that wasn't good. It was great.
Then 12 hours later, I'm in my first Broadway rehearsal, and my life changed like that.
Yeah. It is cool because it is. For those who have known you for a while, it is such a story, though, right? It is such a story. It's almost an unbelievable story. So to know the person who's telling it.
Yeah, I'm in a coma right now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna wake up like it was all fake. No.
And then now you're attached to arguably, one of the biggest IPs out there at the moment, right? In terms of season 5 dropping soon, and so what was that like? I remember you were quite generous in your Insta footage, right? Of like the footage of you walking into the theater for the first time and all of that. But tell us some of that. What was that like?
What's crazy is the work itself is nothing different than to what you're doing here, than to what I did at Miami Children's Theater. It's work. I mean, we get there first day and Stephen Daugherty says, we know people like to do this, we don't do table reads. So let's just jump right into the first, and everyone else had their script for like 2 months because he's like, we block quick and you just have to remember it. We need you to be off book and you can go write it down later. And everyone else was off book. So again, I just got the script yesterday, but I'm like, well, if everyone else is off book, I gotta be off book. So when I'm not being used, I'm in the corner reading, and then they say, oh, when I want to come over here, and I put it in my pocket, and I just don't look at it. And again, just by some grace of God or whatever, it was in there. But the work's the same, and even when we move to the theater, it's the same. The stuff that's different that I don't think anything can prepare you for, especially not anything collegiate or academic, is publicity. And then going through the stage door, especially for like a show like Stranger Things. So that stuff is pretty crazy. Our first preview, it was the best audience. They just loved Stranger Things. And like in Hamilton, when he comes out and goes, Alexander Hamilton, yeah! Every character introduction was, yeah!
Oh, yeah.
And I'm getting nervous because I'm like, if you ever see the show, you'll see, like, I'm like one of the last. We have this whole like sequence. It's like a school sequence where everyone's getting introduced, like it's like an old '90s John Hughes movie. Like here's the jock, and that's Hopper over there. He's gonna marry Joyce someday. And then Bob comes in. I was like, well, they've been clapping for a while. Starting to wind down a bit. I don't think they'll. And I come in there, and luckily for me, through no fault or creative process of my own, Bob's a very beloved character just from the series and how his arc went. Just comes in, and that's Bob Newby, yeah! And I was like, thank gosh. That's Bob Newby. So that stuff is really, really cool and different, and we did a Good Morning America interview, and that was very cool and very different. But when it comes to the work, it's the same. It's the same as what you're doing here now. what I saw yesterday, let the people sing. It's the same. It's the same. What you're going to be doing tonight at RIP. It's all the same.
And I definitely want to bore down into that more. But I think not everyone knows your story. So since then, you've been opening and everything's gone really well at Stranger Things, right? With no incident whatsoever.
So it's been an emotional roller coaster, just like every other part of my life has been. We have opening night. It's amazing. I meet the Duffer Brothers. I meet Noah Schnapp. I meet all these exciting people. And then we're starting to do the show. We're starting to get into a rhythm. They don't say your show's really found its footing until like 3 months. And it's like the 3-month mark comes. All right, I'm starting to feel it. Like this is like I'm finding new things. And I think we're getting it. It's real now. It's the end of Act 1. There's this big revolve on the stage that moves pretty quickly at time. And there's this scene where it's complete blackout. We're just lit by our own flashlights. And the revolve is moving quickly, and I have to run on it. And I step onto the revolve, and I feel. I was like, oh, yeah, like that. That's exactly how I was like. But I was like, okay, we'll keep going. And then I kneel, and I'm like, oh, that hurt. Okay, but just keep going. And then intermission comes. I'm like, I was telling the stage manager, I think I messed up my knee a little bit, but I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Intermission. I still have adrenaline, so I finished the whole show. Yeah, that was Sunday night. Then Mondays are day off, so I'm like, let me just rest it. And then Tuesday comes, I'm like, all right, I do another show. But this entire show, my knee's hurting bad. So then Wednesday morning comes, and I'm like, let me get this checked out. And they say, hey, Juan, we think you tore your ACL and meniscus. So that was in June. And I remember they had told me that it's a 9-month recovery. And they said, but you're in a play, right? It's not musical. I go, yeah. So they're like, so you just stand around and talk. Not in Stranger Things. And I was crushed. I cried on the subway. Real New York experience. I was like, yeah. Part of me was like, I'm a real New Yorker now, at least. But I just before getting here, I had a doctor's appointment and have my official return date for December 29th, 3 months earlier. 3 months earlier than expected. So. Knock on wood, right?
Yeah, no. And so we talked about backstage about that, right? You sort of just you've made gallons of lemonade with the lemons life has handed you. So, what have you learnt through that? Because I mean, that to hear that story is rough, right? Like I think that's the moment so many are aspiring to, and to have it for a relatively short amount of time, at least initially, it's so exciting you're going back. What is that time away?
For the first month, 2 months, it was brutal. Once I got the surgery, I couldn't really do much for a month, like on my own. But I found and have learned to become very grateful for it. It taught me a really important lesson, especially when you're in a show like Stranger Things, there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of eyes on it. There's a lot of, like I said, Good Morning America, red carpet, things I'd never done before. People start chirping into your ear and telling you things that aren't authentic, but can feel authentic. And quickly I realized who the people were who did really care and who were just voices that only want you as far as you are needed for them, right? And then once you're not. And I think that's a lesson that some people in this industry maybe never learn or learn much later in life. And I've been lucky enough to learn it in my first big break. So.
And how have you been feeling? Again, I'm trying to tease you into things you told me backstage. But so how have you been feeling that time? Because that's hard. I imagine going from the high of, hey, you just walked out on stage, to I'm in my apartment.
Well, like I said, I fear comfort. And for the rehearsal process was very intense. Tech, there's Tech Week. We had Tech Month. We had 5 weeks of tech. And then after that, we're continuing rehearsals through the first month and a half of previews. Most previews are like 2 weeks. We had a month and a half. So I was in the theater from like 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. every day. And then once the show opens, I'm actually only needed at 6 p.m. So I have the whole day to myself. So already I was kind of a little uncomfortable from that. So then go from that to, like you said, doing nothing. Now I'm really uncomfortable. But now I'm uncomfortable because I'm too comfortable, And I've been doing stuff like this where I go to some colleges and I talk or I workshop with kids. But something that happened was I called my workers' comp adjuster, their insurance person, and I said, so what am I allowed to still do temp work, work that it doesn't involve as much of a strenuous process as Stranger Things, like if I got cast in a TV show and could do that for a day. And she goes, yeah, I think so. Let me check. No one's ever asked me if they could work more. But it's what I went. So I've been auditioning and going to different things. A really cool story again of just like to anywhere you go could be an opportunity for something was my girlfriend. She is a worker at this nonprofit theater in New York, and it's a very well-established one, Abington Theater Company. They have a lot of big artists come in and do stuff for very little because they kind of let artists be artists. And they had this big gala, or I say it was so fancy that I call it a gala. That's how fancy it was. And
I call them all that.
yeah, exactly. There you go. And she was like, "Would you mind volunteering?" And what that means is you work for the auction and then you get to watch the performances. I remember at first I was like, "Well, I want to be a performer. Why am I?" And she's like, "All right, calm it." And
I was just on Broadway.
I swear. And then I was like, "Okay, fine. I'll volunteer. And volunteering, we're all dressed up to the T. There's really no difference from me and the people there except I'm holding a clipboard. But because I'm holding a clipboard, people aren't really spending their time talking to me. So, okay, what can I do here? I put down the clipboard and I start talking to people, and I meet these two great gentlemen who are partners, and they're a producer and a writer, and I talk about just how lovely their suits are, and they talk about what they do, I talk about what I do. They said, well, we'll hope to see you, let's keep talking after the auction. So then after the auction, there's an open bar, and they let the volunteers go to the open bar. That's kind of their payment, is here's some free alcohol. So I'm ordering a drink, and that guy comes up, and his name's Tommaso, and he talks like this. and he goes, "Oh, hey, Juan." I go, "Hey." And I said, "Can I buy you a drink?" And he's like, because it's an open bar. And then he starts telling me a story about this movie, Working Girl, and that there's a joke in there. And then I go, "Okay, so what's a real Italian food I can get here in New York? Not Italian-American." He goes, "Oh, Norma's the place to go." And he goes, "So what about you? Where's Cuban food?" I go, "Margone's." And we're just talking. We're just shooting the crap.
Gala.
we're just chatting, and he goes, I go, "I'd love to stay in touch." And he goes, "Well, listen, I'm producing this stage reading for an industry reading." I didn't even know what that was at the time, but what that is going off Broadway next year, and this is for producers and investors to come and watch. And he's like, "I'd love for you to be there," and that's what I did. Last week, I was at my first ever industry reading. There's actors I very much admire up there, like Wesley Taylor, Jake Scully. These very notable. I see some Wesley Taylor fans over here, maybe. But and I never. It was just through. I was volunteering. They were the rich people. I was the poor guy. You know what I mean? But I found my opportunity to let me put the clipboard down and let me talk to someone and make an authentic connection, and that led to this, and now we're going out to dinner together, and I have now this lifelong connection, hopefully with this producer and this writer, who are very prominent people in the industry, just through a little joke about the open bar.
I feel like...
Which I wouldn't have gotten, sorry for interrupting you, which I wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't been injured, because I would have been performing instead.
Well, and I think you could also say if you weren't open to volunteering as well. You know what I mean?
No. I'm glad Hillary drilled that nail into my head. And
but no, it's interesting. I was just going to say, Juan, it feels like one of the unintended through lines are you put down the clipboard, you put down the script, you put the sides in your pocket, and but all of those are bringing your head up. Yeah. Right? And and connecting and I'm going to get emotional. But I think those of us who have been blessed to have you in our community, that's you. You connect. Whether you were challenging the department at a really important time for us to be challenged, or advocating for those you didn't feel were getting a fair crack, or for yourself. I think sometimes again. People attempted to hide themselves so as not to make any noise or ripples when they feel that perhaps someone else is in control of their career. And I think it's quite lovely to hear that you're out there just making waves, right? You're just making waves.
Thanks.
How does it feel now that you're going back to your Broadway home? Now that you have a date.
Everything, I talk about being grateful for the lessons I learned. Early last month, I was like, all right, I think I learned 11 lessons. Can I get? I'm ready to get back in. I think I learned the lesson. So I'm so absolutely stoked to be going back in. It's just what I love to do. I hope many of you relate to this. Is when it's what you love to do, it's not work. And I think people have a tendency to, it's just human nature, to complain about whatever it is we're doing, to be upset at the rigorous schedule or to do this or that. And there were people there who were upset that, oh, we should have had a 10-minute break already, and those stuff are important, right? But there was people who were jaded. And I'm like, dude, we're getting paid a lot of money to pretend we're being chased by monsters. Like, there's worse things that could be happening right now. I would just implore you all to continue to advocate for yourself and fight for yourself, but really try to understand the distinction of what is advocating for a better tomorrow and what is being negative or talking just because that's what we do and it's the easy thing to do. The harder thing to do is to say, well, I'm pursuing my dream. Well, I'm very lucky to be at a school that has a very expensive tuition, and I'm privileged enough to be in this place with a new theater open. You know, these are the things that are important to remember as you continue going. I remember we were watching our producer run through when we were still in the rehearsal studio. Well, we were in it, but I was watching the first scene, which is just in the actual show. It's amazing. There's this naval ship. There's demogorgons. People are being dragged off. There's gunshots. It's amazing. In the rehearsal studios, people going, ah! And I'm watching the wing, and I'm talking to Burke, my co-star, and I go, dude, this is just incredible. Like, what our job is to play pretend. And he said, Juan, he's a little older than me, he's 28. He says, Juan, keep that as long as you can. And to me, that's forever.
So I definitely want to make sure we get some time for questions.
Yeah.
So be starting to think if you have some of those.
And it could be like if you want like an acting technique question, or even if it's just like an industry question, or like, oh, what's a fun thing to this or that? Just like don't feel like all questions are good questions. Is my point.
But I wanted to pull it before, if you will indulge, I wanted to pull it back to Rollins a little bit. Yeah. And so I warned you I was going to give you just a little bevy of questions at the end. So what is something not in class that you learned at Rollins that you take with you?
Well, when Chelsea talks about that anti-racist action plan and what has now become Brave here that I'm hearing about, that I think taught me more than any class could have taught me, just having the bravery to speak up, and not like in a pat myself on the back, like seeing other students do that as well, and not letting mediocrity or complacency be a place here. And I remember we had the first year that COVID had happened, we had all these Zoom meetings of this anti-racist action plan. We wrote this big thing, alumni involved, students are involved. And then our first season, like fully back in person, the shows were cast, and it was better, but it was, to be frank, not where I thought it should have been. And I was lucky enough to be one of the people cast, so it wasn't like a thing about me being, and I had, I did this like, I think at like 11 p.m. Like it's, it's the late night hours of like, you should probably think before you do this, but I am about it. I emailed everyone in the department, like Alex, like I emailed all the professors, everyone, this long email about my disappointment in this. And I remember showing it to some of my other peers who were also involved. They're like, that's great that you did that. Are you sure you should have done that? And then I had some teachers like reaching out to me privately, like, hey, I'm in support of you. I'm like, well, why didn't you reply all on that email or this or that? And I remember the head at the time, who's not with the school anymore, who's a great guy, but he told me to come in and he was like, I don't understand what this is about. What do you mean? Like we're doing, but I want to understand, And I was like, well, dude, that level of putting myself out there, and fighting for others and seeing other people fight for others is the most important thing I've learned, maybe in life, but definitely here at Rollins. So really to all of you, like don't let complacency, and whatever it be, it doesn't have to be brave, it could be whatever, complacency, mediocrity, that is, be the person to hold everyone else to a higher standard, and do that by leading by example.
What's an opportunity you didn't take advantage of while you're at Rollins that in retrospect you wish you had?
I wish I went paddleboarding more.
Yeah.
No,
That's a legitimate answer. I'm not gonna.
this is kind of a cheat because I actually did take advantage of this, but because when I was a Priscilla Parker Scholar, which just meant I had to be involved in everything. Like I had to, if I wasn't cast, I had to be tech. And what I would implore people who that's not a requirement is to really take advantage of those opportunities to be in tech, to be an assistant director, to be an assistant stage manager, because that stuff, if Rollins is still like how it was when I was here, I mean that we treated that under like equity level rules, and you learn a lot that will prepare you for the real world. So that's kind of a cheat answer,
no,
but
no cheats.
take those opportunities and think of them as opportunities, not as something you have to do. Even though sometimes I thought of it as something I have to do.
And you've stepped into the industry. What is something like a lacuna or something that you didn't know then that you wish you'd known going out into the world?
I mean, it's kind of like the things that you actually are taught here and probably in any theater program, but you go, yeah, all right. Like no could be a maybe yes, maybe later down the line, like, yeah, whatever. But no, it's true. Or that thing about being early is being on time is being late is unacceptable. That's true. Like, that's very true. I showed up once to the theater at 6:31. My call time was 6:30. And they were pissed. And they said, dude, I mean, we're understanding, but you have, like, the next time we don't hear from you and it's 6:30 and your name's not on the call sheet, your understudy's going on. It doesn't matter if you come in a minute later and you have people in the crowd, your understudy's going on. Yeah, so, yeah, right. So that stuff matters.
And what's something that you want those following in your footsteps to know?
Wow, I want to say something deep, but I actually just want to give something very practical and technique, because I don't know if this class is still taught here in the same way. And no offense to whoever does teach that class now, but Thomas Roulette, who's no longer with the school, taught an auditions technique class that I took my senior year that changed my life. And I'll give you the quickest, I'm standing now, the quickest, the quickest, yeah, you guys following this? The quickest little bit, if I could just give you the mini, like this is the biggest takeaway from this, is how do you walk on confidence? How do you be prepared for any audition? The main thing is whether you have a song or a monologue, what you're gonna do is, if this is your X, you're in square 0. And then around you is square 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, all the way up to 9. And move, you gotta move, don't park and bark, but that can often lead to like, I'm moving over here, and now I'm moving over here. No, these 9 squares give you a very grounded technique to use, and as you're learning your lines, put in your script, square 3, square 4. And it can, it can move, it doesn't have to be so rigorous, but like that matters. So if I don't know any theater monologues off the top of my head, so I'll just like, but if it's like, if I'm talking to someone and I'm like, okay, I didn't do the dishes, but you with this, and actually I can't even with you right now, so I'm gonna move over here to square 9, okay? And actually now I'm gonna go back here and go over to square number 6, okay? And I'm gonna break the rule and look away. But I'm gonna come back, okay? So that, I know that's like a very quick rundown, but try to remember just those 9 squares. Like literally get some painter's tape and put them out as you're learning your monologue, because that changed my life, genuinely. I don't know if I would have been at the position I am now if it wasn't for that.
So hip to be square?
It's hip to be square.
No, that's all I've got.